Todd Blanche sat in front of senators today for 5 hours in his Senate confirmation hearing to be Attorney General. What did we learn? Joining us, Democratic Senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. Senator, thanks for joining us again. What did you learn about Todd Blanche?
Well, I learned that he is going to be the president's lawyer. I learned that he is going to be the guy that when the president tells him to go after his political enemies, he will, the president's sword. And when he wants the president to be, when the president wants him to protect him from just inquiry, from investigation, from accountability, that he's going to do that. This is a guy who has proven in his short time as acting director and in his time as the number 2 in that office that he will subvert justice for the will of the president.
What did you think of this moment right here? This is Senator Kennedy questioning him, lobbing him a softball. Here is his answer.
Are you and President Trump friends?
I'm his lawyer, was his lawyer, and now I'm the Deputy Attorney General. So I met him as his criminal defense attorney. I'm not sure there's very many people who have ever had a criminal defense attorney who calls that person their friend. I now have a...
Well, let me put it this way. Are you enemies?
No, we're not enemies at all.
Leader Schumer called that Freudian. What did you hear?
I heard him telling the truth and then trying to quickly correct and subvert again. Look, that's how he views himself, to protect the president. There's no greater example of this than what he did with the Epstein files. Remember, he went to do the unbelievable thing of having meetings over 2 days with Ghislaine Maxwell, talking to her directly, and then afterwards she got into something that sex offenders, child predators do not have happen to them, put into a camp-like a facility with the lowest possible security and was treated like a special guest. That violates BOP, Bureau of Prisons protocols. Now, why did she get all that special treatment? I asked him point blank. Was it because she gave you evidence that led to prosecuting more people? No, that's not happening. And then he dared to tell me that he was just very concerned about her safety. Well, he wasn't concerned about the safety of the women whose identities, addresses, phone numbers, and images of the survivors of Epstein that they did not redact and that they released to the public. They did redact a lot of powerful men in protecting them, but they re-traumatized these women and seemed to be only concerned about Ghislaine Maxwell's safety and not theirs.
In his testimony today and in your observation of him so far, his actions that you've seen, you've detailed, do you believe he has a red line? I ask that because Bill Barr, who was accused of acting as President Trump's personal attorney in the first administration, he had a red line. He would not follow Donald Trump's orders regarding trying to overturn the 2020 election. Do you think that Todd Blanche has his own?
No, this is the difference between Donald Trump in his first term and in his second term. He's gotten rid of most of those people that would stand up to him on matters of principle and matters of law. We know this because of the outrageousness that's been called out by people across the spectrum when it comes to things like trying to persecute and prosecute Comey for the seashells he placed on the sand. This is somebody who has shown he has no druthers about doing outrageous, unprecedented subversions of the law if Donald Trump tells him to do those things. And that's why today wasn't just a partisan exercise. This wasn't just unfortunate to have him there. When you give someone like that the position of the highest law enforcement officer in the land, when you give them that much power, this is dangerous to America and Americans.
I was having a conversation with Ken Dilanian a moment ago on this show, and he said Todd Blanche does actually push back in private, push back on the James Comey investigation, saying that it's not a strong case. That being said, he did still pursue it. James Comey has still been indicted. So I'm going to invoke Bill Burr once again, and I'm going to ask this: is he? And I'm taking a liberty here, but is he the best bad option for Attorney General?
No, we can't capitulate to what's happening in our country. Whether it's a war overseas, that he's been months at this war, never come to Congress where war powers lie, whether it's the normalization of the killing of Americans in our streets, or whether it's an attorney general who is further traumatizing victims, child victims of a sex trafficker. We cannot normalize this. We cannot just say this is the best we're going to get. The Congress has a job. We're supposed to be providing checks and balances to the White House, and it's unacceptable that I'm watching so many Republicans who are violating their oath of their Constitution because they're afraid of the president. And those small handful of people that have been liberated, they've been freed because the president has ensured that they're not going to be reelected. We're seeing salt glimmers of a backbone there. But in this case, I'm worried that they're not going to stand up to them, and they're just going to allow a dangerous man to become the highest law enforcement officer in our country.
Senator Cornyn was tough on him today. Do you think Senator Cornyn ultimately votes yes?
I don't know. I'm hoping Americans, especially Texans, will speak out, will demand that he doesn't, that will tell him that history will be the judge of this. Because how many times have we seen this? We see Susan Collins regretting just letting a Supreme Court justice go by, saying, I got promises that they'll preserve Roe v. Wade. We've seen this with Senator Cassidy, just letting somebody go by who promised him that he'll preserve vaccine laws and oversight. How many Republicans have to be burned by the promises they get by a nominee who's just telling them everything they want to get a job, and then they start seeing things and policies that violate their values? Cornyn needs to stand up right now and say what he is seeing. He is seeing a man that was willing to subvert the law and get an immunity clause granted to a president for any tax violations that he does. That alone should be disqualifying, and Cornyn should stand up and do the right thing on this and not vote for him.
What are you worried about come November?
Well, forget November. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the president of the United States come forward and trump up information and say that somehow our elections are not safe and secure. Do you know how dangerous that is to our democracy for the president of the United States to continue for years now to try to undermine our election processes? And now he has the power of law. He's going to try to have a case to federalize our elections. Our democracy that we inherited is not inevitable. It has to be fought for in every generation. And what this president is going to do tomorrow night, we could stop it from being done if we had an independent Justice Department that was going to say absolutely not. Court after court has said our elections were secure in 2020 and can be secure now unless the president of the United States is allowed to win and undermine those elections. And that's what's at stake right now. That's why Americans should be in this moment speaking up. He may get confirmed, but do not be silent as people are working hard to undermine our democracy that we inherited from our ancestors.
Senator Cory Booker, always good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate you.